Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the concept of fear and time, and how we all tend to think we're the only person who's got OCD or anxiety in the way that we have, and that we're going to be stuck forever like this, and we're different, we're an exception to the rule, because that's what we all tend to do. Now, the reason for that being is because the journey with OCD is so isolating, and how it comes on it's obviously got some kind of genetic component that triggers it off in a sort of a period, in a chronic format like I often say, in a sort of period of 24 hours. And when that happens, you're instantly thinking in your head, you're thinking very, very quickly, I'm stuck, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm basically doomed. In that moment, that's what you tend to think. This sort of fear cycle that you're never gonna work out, you're never gonna find a way out of this, and you tend to think that. So then, when you go through shifts, you get over certain fears. You think, I've made a big improvement here. I'm feeling a little bit freer. And then you might get this sort of false dawn where you think, I've cracked it, I've recovered. And then something else comes in, or you just have a different relationship with the anxiety and OCD. And all these little sections of the journey, you get more confident, or you feel more set back or more stuck. So it's understandable that we're going to get completely fixated on, I need to know that I've definitely recovered. I need to know that everything's sorted. And we're observing, like I say, with this imaginary thermometer in our head 24/7, trying to check how anxious am I still? How scared am I still? How much is the physical anxiety affecting me? And all these different areas. It's the same as somebody who's fixated on their weight, and they are wanting to be, not talking about someone with an eating disorder, I'm not talking about somebody with body dysmorphia, I'm talking about just an individual in the general population who's fixated on their weight. They want to be in a great shape in their mind for going on holiday or whatever, or for Instagram pictures. They are observing their body in a sort of zoom-like focus, very, very much right in on those points that they don't like. How fat am I? How is the fat on my arms, on the back of my triceps, on my stomach? How is that fat consistency? How does that look in the light? How does that look? Or maybe then they're worried about tan and looking pale or whatever. All different things they're zooming in on. Well, they're going to be completely fixated on that, completely fixated on all those levels. And then other people's compliments to them will say, hey, you're looking pretty good at the moment. You've been working out something, boost, because they've got conditional self-acceptance. So there's obviously a boost. And then they're looking at all those parts and, I feel okay in this particular item of clothing, and then in that light, and they're zooming in and they're focusing on that. Now, it's very much the same with an anxiety disorder in our situation, where we're looking at, how have I been feeling today? How did I feel when I woke up? Did I have a lot of energy when I woke up? How did I feel the other night? I stayed out till this time and I wasn't too bad. Physical symptoms weren't too bad. How have I felt with that thought? That thought seems to have gone down a bit. How have I been when I've been working? I've been working quite well and I've forgotten about it. So there's that whole journey going on with this hawk, like sort of eye of a hawk, looking down on every single physical sensation, both in the brain, in the body, and in your general perspectives of life and your surroundings. So you've got this whole sort of very, very close internalized microscope-like view on anxiety sensations. So then when someone's saying, in the general medical setting, where they don't of course understand OCD into the great amount of detail that you guys often do, they will say things like, oh yes, there's treatment resistant cases, oh yes, some people have to be on meds their whole life, oh yes, you're going to have to be on a very high dose of meds, and so on. And then the person's feeling more and more scared. It's very much the same in the fibromyalgia and the ME community. I look at a lot of other communities to see, one part of my own journey was looking at other health conditions that were far worse and seeing people optimistic about recovery in there. And then that became a huge motivator for myself in my own situation. So I'd often look at things like that. And if you look at the fibromyalgia and ME community, they have people that they've been to test after test, doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, a disorder that they don't know what it is exactly. People, then loads of stuff saying people are stuck forever, your whole life's changed. That's going to make you feel like there's no way out, a complete doom. And the human brain doesn't like that, obviously. The human brain is looking for a way out somewhere, and obviously we can get fixated on that and go over the top with that as well, in terms of, I'm going to work overboard, absolute overtime to get better. Now, that's what I did. I was completely obsessed with that position to make sure that it was a consistently every day 4 to 5 hours a day recovery journey. That is absolutely over the top, which became counterproductive. Sure, I learned a lot, but I was fixated on recovery. And again, you see that in the fibromyalgia and ME community, where they are talking about how when they stopped being completely fixated on recovery, it actually played a significant part in their recovery. Now, you do need to be very disciplined for recovery, but at the same time, you can't be you can't do it absolutely over the top, because that becomes counterproductive. So it has to be a balanced approach, and it has to have different phases at different periods, sometimes doing more where needed, sometimes doing less. And it's a balance of easing off on putting your foot on the gas and taking your foot off the gas. So there's a lot of that going on. Now, when it comes to a lifetime, we're living at a time now where, especially with social media and so on, people are seeing a lot more things about motivation, life goals, and so on, because it's very popular online. Plus, humans are wanting to take in that information a lot more. So if you look at that kind of situation with that, there's a lot about people saying, you should work from 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. You should be completely fixated on a goal. Yes, that has got its huge amount of benefits, but it's also got a huge amount of risk for burnout. So there's a lot of that going on. So we've got to plan our time out, and we've got to not be too fixated on the long term, because life is loads and loads of shifts day by day, and perspective shifts going along all the time that mount up to form a lifetime. And we can't fixate completely on, it's the idea of being stuck for life. Focus on the one day. How bad are the symptoms? Can you manage them today? Can you get along? Can you build up on that and get more confident with that each day as it goes along? In any clinic, in any disorders, diseases, or anything, the recovery journey is always building up step by step, little by little, on those individual days, till we're seeing a huge improvement over a longer term. But it's those small steps that build and build. Same as anything. If someone's building a business, or an athlete who's learning in a sport, what they're doing is they're starting in very small amounts that then build up. But then what OCD tends to do, and most anxiety disorders tends to do, and so does depression, is it fixates completely on the fact that this thing is so bad, this can't get any worse. And plus, you've got an emotional feeling of how you feel in this moment that then kind of makes you feel like, if you feel like this now, then you will never feel any different. But emotions today aren't the same as emotions forever. You could anything you could look at like that. You could look at the first time you had sex compared to regular sex throughout your life. If you based it on the first time, it'd probably give you a very biased view of the rest of your life. So you can't do that. And we tend to do that with everything. Everything's changing. There'll be a time where you were really hungry and you wanted to eat a certain food, and another time where you don't want to, or another time that you ate too much of it and you went off that, or whatever. And there's so much variety that's happening all the time in terms of emotional state. But we tend to be fixated on, I need to feel calm, I need to feel how I felt prior to the point that I developed chronic OCD. And that fixation is what's keeping people so stuck, because they're using it as a marker, as a clear indicator that at point Tuesday, February the 23rd, 2004, I developed chronic OCD. Prior to that, I need to get back to that feeling right now, or know that that feeling is definitely achievable in the next few years or months. Because a lot of people don't want to think years. A lot of people want to think weeks or days. And if I can't, my life's ruined. And that's very black and white thinking, because that whole view of life's ruined, it's the same as you see athletes that go from performing at high level, an injury, to suicidal, is because they can't shift the perspective from anything else but being an athlete. So what we need to do is we need to look at adaptation. Humans are the masters at adapting, but it's about really channeling that. I could find you hundreds of people that have severe diseases in a really bad state, that their outlook and how good they feel today in their mind is so much better than a lot of us do when we're on bad days, because they have got a perspective on that shift. Now, that's the same with OCD. Like I often say, I could have 30 to 40% anxiety back today, physical, whilst on this video. I could have that now, and I wouldn't be bothered. I would think, I really don't like this, but it should pass at some point. However, if I did have the beliefs prior, I wouldn't be in that position, because I would be thinking things like, oh, what if it never goes? Oh my God, what if it's real? Oh my God, I can't handle this. How can I even speak? What if people see me speaking and then I seem really odd? All of those compounding irrational beliefs would sort of linger around that and would create that sensation of feeling completely locked and trapped. So your perspectives are shifting. Your sensations are shifting, your body is shifting, okay? So we've got to learn to deal with discomfort. When I was suffering from insomnia, and I spoke to, over the years that I've had problems with anxiety and OCD and so on, I met some great people along the way that were very knowledgeable on particular areas, because I always researched and found sort of the best people in different fields for different areas. And for insomnia, I remember speaking to sort of insomnia veterans, people who'd had insomnia for 20 years in forums, had and recovered and so on, and talking about how it was the fear of the sensation of being drowsy, or fear of the sensation of being tired, looking tired, that used to bother them so much, and they hated that, and they rejected that, and they wanted rid of that, and they viewed that as instant death or decaying the body that would lead to early death. And so they were so fixated on that then obviously subconsciously, well, not so much subconscious because it is in the primary consciousness right there in front of us, we go to bed, but we're highly concerned about being drained, about our body dying, decaying, whatever view or interpretation you have of insomnia. And so then the whole cycle started and erupted and became continuous cycle. That's because of that fixation on that part. Whereas once they were like, well, do you know what? I haven't died. Even if I sleep 5 hours, I still do everything. Even if I feel drowsy, I've still done this, and this. I've still had a family. I've still ran a business. I've still done all these different things. And then they became less and less scared. And then with time, that came down. That didn't mean that a lot of those symptoms, unrefreshed sleep and so on, specifically seen in fibromyalgia and ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, they didn't need to be fully gone for them to be at peace. Now, that is very much the case with myself too. I was suffering from very, very bad insomnia. And do you know what I used to think? I felt my whole life had sort of turned upside down. Okay, I felt my whole life turned upside down. Once I'd got that to a place where I was functioning again, it was still very unrefreshing sleep, and I felt very lethargic and sort of in a kind of dreamlike state, even though I was awake. But I had some great times even during that. Like, there was many nights out where I was in a bar and I was still having conversation with everyone and doing everything. Although I felt sort of tired at the beginning of the night and thought I can't stay out, I stayed out. And once I was distracted, I forgot about it. Your brain gives you little extra bits of energy, because the brain's like that. The brain doesn't work in a way, I mean, there's so many sort of things to all the different parts of these disorders. But with insomnia, just because you're tired in the morning doesn't mean you'll be tired all day. Just because you feel fatigued doesn't mean you might stay up all day. You also get a sort of secondary boost of energy in the evening. Hence why you'll often feel when you go out at night, oh, I feel a lot more alive than I did at 12 or 1 o'clock, just because of how the brain operates. And so I would often find that. And so things like that, realizing I could still do absolutely everything. And I've got narcolepsy in the family, not severely, but with my father. So genetically, there could be elements of that in there too. I don't know. But I don't need to investigate everything into this sort of really in detail approach to how my brain and genetics and biological everything functions, which I used to do hugely when I was suffering from health OCD. I would be very scared of any biological thing out, any biological danger, any risk. So I'd be going to doctors constantly checking because I wanted to make sure that my body was safe and intact as it was prior to the date that I can remember myself developing chronic OCD. So we've got to stop looking 20 years ahead. And we've got to stop looking to deliver a time period in the past into the future. We're not doing that. We're changing now. We are now as we are. and we're adapting and changing and shifting away from a suffering position for those of you who are suffering. But you don't want to fixate on, I need to feel calm right now. I need this all to be at peace. I need to feel completely relaxed, no physical symptoms. It doesn't matter if you have physical symptoms in relation to happiness. People think happiness is the absence of suffering. It isn't. It's a perspective shift. People are in hospital beds blind with chronic pain that are happy because their grandchildren have come in to visit them. That is their perspective. So it is not a thing that you need a biological balance to maintain a happiness. And if you can't get that, you will never achieve that. That is a myth. That is something that we've all believed. Plus, we tend to live in a society today that is obsessed about this sort of living forever and being perfect. Everyone's more in better shape. Nobody's drinking alcohol as much as before. And people are really fixated on a great body and sort of living to 110. Chances are we might not live to 110. And people are often treating it like we're going to live to 500. Now, this could happen with science. We can't say it isn't. But people are obsessed with being so healthy, sleep hacking, hack all your sleep to be perfect. 9 times out of 10, they disrupt their sleep and then develop a sleeping problem because they're so fixated on hacking their sleep. So the key point here is about living your life, balance, yes, health and so on, but not being completely obsessed of, I need to be in the perfect shape and I need to be super healthy, have everything absolutely perfect, because that's, again, perfection. Now, I know this from my own background, coming from a background in the past, years ago, where I was taking fitness very seriously, and I was monitoring every calorie and every protein intake and for the optimum fitness goals. Now, the reason we see mainly young people doing this is because at that age, they haven't yet seen the perspective of life, that there is actually much more to life. We don't need to be that fit. It's a benefit to be that fit, and it feels great, don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic feeling. But often the over-obsession with it comes to do with control and our perspectives of what others think of ourselves. You don't get sort of 50, 60-year-old guys and women thinking, we do, but you don't, but not as much, thinking I've got to be in this incredible shape to impress everyone. Because as your perspective shifts through life and you become more rational and more in tune to how life is in general, those things shift out. But initially, the same as why a 15 or 16-year-old would be very nervous about how they're perceived on a night out or something, as opposed to someone who's 60. So all of these things are shifts, reflections, seeing things differently, changing our perspectives on areas of both our life, externally as well as internally. We don't need to feel internally recovered now. We can be okay with not being. We can be okay with physical symptoms. We can be okay with back pain. We can be okay with nausea. We can be okay with fluttering chest, feeling anxiety. We can be okay with harm OCD still there. We can be okay with our OCD still latched. We can be okay with being in a relationship where we don't feel in love. We can be okay with all of this. It's about being okay in this moment now. And it is okay to not be okay, and being okay with not being okay too. So that's a key point. Acceptance. With acceptance, we often have to accept that we can't accept right now. We also need to accept that we're stuck right now. And we also need to accept that it might take a little while, but that all of it comes together to form this path that all together gets you better, bit by bit by bit by bit. And it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to have ups and downs. You're going to have moments where you think, oh my God, I'm back at square one. Oh my God, I've learned nothing. Oh my God, I can't take any of this in. Oh my God, I'm not going to recover because of X, Y, Z. Everyone's been there. I have been there. And I know that journey very, very, very much as it is. Going from, oh, I feel complete relief, I've got over this thought, to a new one. Fuck, how has this come along? That kind of thinking. Or I've got a holiday planned, I've been feeling great. And then an old fear latching, oh my God, that holiday is going to be ruined. All those kinds of things. That's what it does. It does that. Really good to look at people with other diseases, other disorders, and how they're living. I could look at myself now and say to myself, there are physical and health things, not that I've got anything serious, that's any major complaints. I have some things that are a bit niggly in terms of just general physical complaints, knee pain, lower back pain from doing too much weights wrong when I was younger and so on. But those things, all those things, I don't need to be perfect, because most people will never get that. You don't see many people who feel absolutely perfect internally in their health, but it's getting comfortable with it not. I see ME and fibromyalgia sufferers say, I've had a headache for 15 years, and today it's been 50% down, so I'm glad about that. Now, to somebody who hasn't got a headache, they'd think, oh, that's terrible, but it's perspective. Perspective in relation to pain and in relation to health is key. People don't see it until they have an injury. I've had a damaged disc in my neck where it was really bad pain, going to physio 3-4 times a week, had to grab my hair just to lift my head out of bed because of how damaged all the discs were, and I couldn't even move a millimeter, which was a nightmare for years and years. Especially when I was going out a lot and going to clubs and stuff when I was younger, and someone would come up to you and grab you and say, hey, Rob, how are you? And you've got this neck that could barely move a millimeter. It wasn't easy, I can tell you, in lots of areas of your life. And you then appreciate the moments when the pain was a bit less. And I realised it was all perspective-based. It was all completely latched to control, wanting to be back to that point prior the injury, prior anxiety. And over time, you get more and more used to putting up with pain and anxiety and so on. But what if my health's in trouble? Well, you're not going to have perfect health. People, Albert Ellis, for example, who's the founder of CBT, and if you follow this page, you know I'm a huge fan of his work. He had loads of health problems all his life, spent years in a hospital as a child and lived to 90 odd. And there's many people like that. Many people living into their 90s with physical health complaints all their life. And there's other people who've lived healthily and then died at 45. So it's complete uncertainty and unknown. We have to get used to that unknown, that we do not know when we are going to die. We do not know how we're going to feel tomorrow or the next day. No one knows. I don't know if I'm going to drop dead right now. I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to find some cancer that I'm going to spend the next 10 years battling. I don't know any of that. But I'm okay not knowing that because I'm going to deal with it. And what's the worst that can happen is that I die. But I am going to die anyway. And that is in the not so distant future. How old am I? 30, nearly 36, maybe 35, 40 years. My lifetime again. Can't guarantee it's going to be in perfect health. We will go with it moment by moment. And we are going to do all these things and all these things that we're aware of for improvement of health and fitness and all different areas to help us live and feel better, because that's what we're trying to do. And realistically, with all those changes in different areas, we will start to feel a lot better. But I can't guarantee it, and I don't need to guarantee it to be at peace right now with the moment. So that's what I wanted to highlight. This learning to wear uncomfortable sensations through anxiety or physical illness and ailments like an uncomfortable coat that does not detract from your happiness. And remember that happiness is a moving target. So how happy am I right now doing this call? Well, this is my passion. I love what I'm doing, but I'm probably not as happy as I was if I was on a date with someone that I've just really started to really like and we're having a great meal. I imagine that might be happier, but I'm not trying to chase that sensation all the time. I'm not living a lifestyle which we tend to as humans today, sort of from a hedonistic lifestyle where we're trying to chase all these really highs and all these great feelings all the time, because that's not sustainable and usually leads to a poor outcome. So I do tend to interpret more of a stoic approach. So learning to be at peace with not needing, learning to be at peace with whatever I'm doing in that moment as much as I can. And then it is great. Then I'm reasonably content. But I still do all the other things for the additional bonus, but I don't need it. I'm not chasing it. I'm not feeling I have to have it. And that's the problem. Today, a lot of people, they have used, if I get that or I get this, then I'll be happy. Well, that's detracting from you're sacrificing the happiness you have today for a future possibility that may not be obtained. So you need to get used to what you've got right now: sensations, health, financial circumstances, family circumstances, relationship circumstances, the whole lot. And we need to think, okay, I'm going to just practice to make a little bit more peace with this. Just a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more each day. Bringing that towards us rather than pushing that away. We often tend to do that with OCD. When this is gone, then I'll be better. When this is gone, then I'll be fine. When this is gone, then my life will be better. That is not going to work. Your life is what your life is. Where you are now is now. What we do to change that can happen. But where we are now just is. And it's learning to accept and make peace with that, feeling that we just are where we are this second. We just are in that position right now. And that's really important. And I had to do that with lots of physical changing symptoms, because often OCD would change a physical symptom, give me something really annoying, like maybe really increased sweating or something like that. And I would think, fuck, this is so annoying. Like, I never used to have this last week. And physical symptoms used to constantly change. So at one point I'd be like, well, I never had that. If only I didn't have that, then I was fine last week. Because what used to happen for me is a new physical symptom used to come in, bang, it latched, and it didn't tend to go back. Some faded in out, but then the other more major ones sort of carried along through my life when I was suffering from OCD. And that was very frustrating, because I was constantly in a position of wanting to be prior to the position that I was feeling in now, or before that symptom had come on. Often my OCD, I realized, I thought, oh God, I was taking for granted not having a sleep problem and OCD. Then when that developed, oh, I wish I didn't have that. Or when I had things to do with changes in, what other things did I have? Sort of muscle tightness, or fatigue, or joint pain, then you appreciate the times prior. And it then became an obsession with wanting to get back to the past, or how did I do that, or how do I get rid of that? Until I got to a point where I just started to accept whatever is. That's my body, that's how I am, that's the situation I'm in right now, and leaving that there, and not trying to internally drastically change that. Working towards recovery, but not needing to force internal change now. Guys, great to have you all here, and thank you very much, Nick, for answering all the questions today, or covering the majority of the questions on there. I'm not going to go into a Q&A today. I just wanted to come in here and talk about that particular topic, and I will be back on here doing a Q&A very soon. All right, guys, take it easy. See you later.